sales and loyalty with current and new clients. I think this is going to be an impactful topic for our customers because the learning the keys to position themselves and their business is essential. And I'm looking forward to what you're going to bring to us today. Before we get started, though, let me just share with our audience a reminder of an upcoming webinar that's on March 9th. We're going to go through and show you how to using data science for your bracket in your business can transform your business. Data can really give you some cool information to transition and optimize your business. So we're excited about that March 9th webinar, and keep a lookout. We'll be sending some emails out with that sign up. But today, our objective is to bring thoughtful insights on increasing sales and loyalty with current and new customers to help each of you earn preferred position with your clients and your potential new clients. Our leader in this discussion today is a friend, Amy Connor, owner of CMO on Loan. Amy's illustrious career has been with several Fortune 500 businesses, making in many marketing roles and a few at the top level of Chief Marketing Officer. As the corporate environment changed for Amy, she assessed the need and the assistance required for business in the small and medium markets for marketing and help, and developed a company called CMO on Loan. So she goes and helps multiple small and medium-sized businesses on a loan basis to give them direction and give them assistance. Amy has done this for multiple companies over the last few years and has really been an impactful player in their businesses. So we're excited to have her with us. Amy, we're ready for you to start. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to our audience, Amy Connor of CMO on Loan. Amy, the platform is yours.
Thank you so much, Gary. And thank you to everyone who's been able to join today. I'm seeing a couple of notes in the chat over here that the audio is not very good. I just want to make sure, can someone type and respond if you are not able to hear me right now, just so we can deal with any of those technical difficulties as we go. Okay, it sounds like I'm okay. If something comes up, please let me know. Please put it in the chat. That's perfect. So hi, everyone. I am thrilled to be with you today. I'm going to talk about increasing sales and loyalty and trying to break it down in just to a few things. There are lots and lots of things you can do, but over the year, both in Fortune 500 companies and with mid-market companies, I have learned that increasing sales and loyalty has a lot to do with two key pieces. So first, a little bit more on my background. It's great to meet you. I started my career, I'm in Dayton, Cincinnati, Ohio, and I started at the Imes Company. We sold pet food and we were privately held. I was passionate about the company, the product, and how they went to market. We were acquired by Procter & Gamble, and I was a marketer with an MBA, and that was a great place to be. I worked on very fancy brands like Pepto-Bismol and Metamucil, where I learned a lot of humility. Then I moved on to selling glasses. I went to Luxottica, and I really enjoyed that as well. Moved my way from Sears brand to the LensCrafters brand, where I was the lead marketer there. Then I left in 2016, and as Gary said, I turned my attention back to the community, the one that I'd learned so much about from working at the Imes Company, and the number of people I'd met as I left, and I met them, and I said, wow, you guys really have a lot going on. And they said, man, I could use your firepower. I just couldn't use it every day. And I said, you don't need my firepower every day. Let me see if I can help you get up and running, and you're going to be great. And that's where CMO and Loan came. So I'm so happy to be here with you today. So first, let's talk about the objectives. If I'm successful, which my goal is to be, you will gain an understanding of how to grow your business. Two specific ways. Number one, increasing sales and loyalty with current customers. And number two, how to identify and market to new customers. Let's jump right in. Number one, increasing sales and loyalty with current customers. Let's talk about how we do this. What you really want to do is create raving fans. There's even a whole book called Raving Fans. Some people call this advocates. Some people call this champions. Call it what you want, but what it actually is at its heart are customers who recommend you to others. Don't just keep it to themselves. becoming an extension of your sales force. They are often more profitable, they stay with you longer, and they buy more. So themselves, they are great customers. But they also help you, because they're an extension of your sales force, they reduce customer acquisition costs. They're already getting out there. They're making what could be a warm introduction for you. It improves retention rates, and it also, we've found, it inspires your employees. Everybody wants to serve somebody else well. And these are the types of customers you want to focus on. So let's talk about what we mean. How do you create a raving fan? First, you can't do it with everybody. You can only do it with a few. So you're going to have to choose. This doesn't mean that you fire a bunch of customers, but it means you are going to focus and spend your time on a few versus all of them. You really need to understand what's important to them. We'll talk about that. Their frustrations, the things that they use to measure. And then you need to be, I didn't just say, act like they're their best vendor every once in a while. You need to actually be it. And we'll go through that here in a minute. So for a little bit of inspiration, Bill Gates, pretty successful guy. And I like to learn something from people who've had great success in their life. Not always rainbows and sunshine, that's for sure. But what he said is, my success, part of it certainly, is that I have focused on a few things. And that is what we're going to be talking about here. So how do you focus? You may say, great for Bill Gates. How do I do it? Well, first, let's start with your current customers. This is a simple segmentation of current customers. They fit in a couple of categories. You may have already segmented them. A, B, C, D is very common. 1, 2, 3, 4, or like we did here. We broke it up. On the left side, you'll see sales per customer, meaning how big are they right now? And on the bottom is their growth potential. How big do you think they're going to be? Doesn't have to be perfect. We do this all the time. We end up using Excel files and put some numbers there to help us understand, but you could do it just by looking at it. On the left side are the ones we're not necessarily going to focus on, but I'm going to tell you which ones they are. The top left, good customers. They're good. They're probably pretty decent size. They're just not going to grow that much. You want to maintain those relationships. You certainly don't want to let go of those relationships. They've been tried and true, and you like working with them. The bottom left, these are the ones you might have had them from a long, long time ago. They may have been a great customer at one time, but they really just don't fit your strategy, your route, your pricing model, whatever it is, or they're just really tough to work with. Generally, they're small. Generally, they're not as profitable. So it's both the number side of things and the subjective side of things. You can keep that in mind. It's not a perfect science. On the top right are the top customers. A lot of times people have a top 5 or a top 10. They're big, meaning they account for a lot of the business or a good size of the business. Not so big. I did hear this question the other day. Yes, you don't want all eggs in one basket. I am not advocating that if you have one client that's 50% of your business, that's your focus to make it bigger. At that point, I'd say, well, who else in that list might you be able to grow so you don't have so many eggs in one basket, so to speak? But who are your top ones? We'll talk about some criteria here in a minute. And then your future top ones. Who are the ones who you think have potential? Who are the ones that maybe you worked with several years ago and for whatever reason, maybe they had someone change, maybe they got into a contract that was multi-years long. Is it a good time to reconnect with them? You can think about that as well. So how do you define top? First, they're large, revenue and profit. We did talk about just a second ago. You probably don't want one that's the majority of all your business. That's a pretty risky place to be. So you do want a little bit more diversification there. They have potential to grow. If they're declining or they're stagnant, they're probably not going to help you grow. So that's the whole point, is to help you grow with them. And you like working with them. Getting an ideal customer target written on paper, you don't have to show it to anybody. It's just for you, but will help you go find the personalities and the type of businesses you're looking for. Next thing, you need to listen. You need to act like, in my world, to be a market researcher, or like a journalist, because you really want to understand. You don't want to go in selling. You really need to pause for a minute. There'll be lots of time for selling. What are their frustrations? We'll talk about in a second which ones they are, but everybody has frustrations. Everybody has pain. And generally, when the pain or frustration gets high enough, that's when they're ready to change. Maybe part of what you're trying to identify is what frustration can you bring up for them that maybe they haven't even realized. Maybe a problem that you've solved that no one's ever thought about before. If that's a frustration that they can recognize, it is definitely a way in. Again, you don't go in selling right now, you're just listening. What metrics are they trying to reach? Generally, they have a lot of things they've got balancing. How do you help them? How can you be part of their team to help them reach their metrics? And then at the end, as we said before, how do their best vendors treat them? Talk about that here in a second. So some examples. Here's some frustrations. Could be damaged merchandisers. Actually, it doesn't even have to be damaged. Maybe that's too obvious. Maybe they just don't look very good. Maybe they're dented or dirty or something. Now, I realize some of that you can't control, but if you can, it seems like a great place to start. Broken bags, delivery delays, rude drivers, invoicing errors. A lot of the things you may not think are marketing are touch points with that customer, and they're important to them. What are the things that they care about? Dollar per sales per merchandiser? Average transaction value? Inventory turnover? Number of tons per merchandiser? Or the number of days out of ice? I'm sure the list is longer and longer. Those are just some ideas. But those are the things that I bet if you ask them, they would gladly tell you, and they would love for someone to help them solve. I just mentioned this, but what do your buyers see? Really, with your drivers, with your merchandisers, the type of service you provide, the type of invoicing communications you offer, every single touch point with that buyer is actually marketing. May not seem like it, but to your customer it is. You've probably heard the term customer experience, customer satisfaction, lots of buzzwords out there. When it gets right down to it, you need to remember that your brand, your company is being represented every time they think or see about you and your products. So take a look at how you can be better. So when we think about being their best vendor, it's not always the biggest or the cheapest. A lot of times it's not the cheapest, because if you're the cheapest, then you can't afford that extra special touch to help solve frustrations, or maybe that extra service they really like. But they really do make their life easier. That's what everybody wants. It's a tough world and it's getting harder. And everybody's looking for someone to make their life easier, not make it more difficult. They over-deliver on promises. This doesn't mean you need to over-deliver every single thing every single day, but you at least need to meet those expectations. You and everybody on your team. The best vendor, they ask and listen. They're not always selling. Like I said, the selling is going to come. And the selling has a lot to do, as you know, with the relationship. They always act professionally. Where we hear this falls down more than not is with the employees, not with the owner. So what's your goal? You really want 1 to 2 customers who are willing to share how you impacted their business. Look at those metrics. Look at those frustrations. From the time you started working with them to a certain period of time later, how have those changed? Can you measure them? Could you track them? Could you give an idea? Doesn't have to be perfect, but see this last line, not just that you're a good person. So keep that in mind. Your goals 1 to 2, not everybody, but 1 to 2. As a reminder, these are all about your current customers. How are we going to help build sales and loyalty with your current customers? By creating raving fans, by focusing on a few, learning what's important to them, and by acting at every touch point, their best vendor. So now we're going to take a quick 1-minute break. I'd like you to jot down 1 top customer. I'd like you to jot down what's most important to them. Think about those frustrations. Think about the metrics. What really matters to that person that you're meeting with? There might be multiple. Many of you probably sell in a business environment that have multiple customers. Who are, if you want to point out the different people, that's great too, because sometimes they have different metrics. And how do you currently show up? What does the buyer see at every touch point with you? And then list just 2 things, 1 to 2 things. This is just going to spur an action. I'm going to start the clock here with 1 minute, and I'll give you a second to get going, and then I'll give you a 10-second warning when we're about to go back to it. All right, here we go. 1 minute, please. Jot a couple of thoughts down. All right, 30 seconds. I feel like we should have the Jeopardy noise going on. Although I kind of thought that was always a little distracting. Okay, finish up. We have about 10 more seconds. Just getting a couple of thoughts down. Okay. Hope you got a couple of things written down. Again, just to spur your thinking. It's hard to get through a presentation and try to remember everything at the very end. So we wanted to give you a little break in the middle. So let's move on. Now let's talk about how to identify and market to new customers. First thing, define who you want. I mentioned last time about putting things on paper on who you like to work with. This is very similar. You don't have to share it with anybody, but it's been proven that if you write down what you're looking for, it's going to go into the back of your mind and you're more likely to find it. It's a pretty simple technique, but it's hard to do if you haven't written it down before. It's hard to believe that it's true. Develop your unique story. You probably know a lot of this already. It's being able to get it out in a way that you get it and that also your team gets it. Whoever is working on behalf of your company and is speaking to new or current customers, they need to understand your story. Create an action plan. This is not some complicated, 15-point scale where you have to get all these charts put together. It's a pretty simple checklist. Just put something on paper that'll help you keep yourself accountable to making some steps. And then we kind of mentioned it before when we talked about the circle and all the ways that you can you can touch the client, all those different touch points. You really need to show up well. Everybody on your team needs to show up well. So first, let's talk a little bit about define who you want. We just said before, when we were talking about current clients, you don't want to focus on everybody. And when you're looking for new ones, you need to focus on a few as well. Partly, you're trying to learn the system or the method or the way that you do it. And if you start with too many, you could get overwhelmed. And then you end up not being able to do what you wanted to do. So start with a few, and then what you learn, you build on that. So here's an example. You might already know who you really want. There's a good chance you already have them on a list. They're your future top customers. They're the ones that went into a contract for several years, and now maybe they're ready. Or the ones that maybe you had a turnover in the sales rep, and then you needed to bring them back. So how are you going to go back to those people? They might already be there. So please keep that in mind as you do this, because you don't want to miss out. Many leave, it's estimated, between 10 and 15% on the table. It's there for the taking because they're not focusing what they already have. They're focusing on what's new, what's different, what's potential. But they've already got it right there in front of them. Sometimes it's harder to see, isn't it? So when you define your target, who you want to work with, we've already said before, you like working with them. So that goes without being, said again. Product and service fit. Do you think they need what you offer and the way you offer it? Revenue and profit potential, we talked about. Be really careful going out and getting a bunch more small ones. They're going to take up a lot of resources, especially at the beginning when you're ramping them up and getting everything ready to go. Their location. I mean, could you map out different routes and say, okay, within X amount of time within this route, that would be a good thing? Yep, that's a great way to do it. And then how can you solve their frustration specifically better than someone else? Is there something in either that type of customer that you have figured out that would be a wonderful way to explain? Is it a frustration that maybe no one else had solved before? Doesn't have to be, but if you have that, by all means, put that on the list. But also think what other markets use ICE that you're not thinking about. Maybe they're in your area. You've been totally focused on C-stores or grocery stores. What other venues might use package ICE that you could talk to? Don't forget those. I'm not saying that's your first thing you should think about. Focus on the core first, but also think about those. It's okay to put them on the list and saying they're not a priority. It's better to have them there, so if you ever want to come back again, then you have it available. So what's your unique story? You hear this all over the place. Some people call it brand positioning, your unique selling line, your value proposition, your sweet spot, you name it. You call it whatever you want to call it. They are all about the same in their intent. The intent is, you know who you're serving. We've just decided that. It addresses their frustration. Here's the trick. No one actually wants to hear about you. They really want to hear about them. They want to hear how you are solving their problem. So the best story is actually the story about your customer and how you're the guide. They're Luke Skywalker. You're Yoda. Remember, you're not the hero of their story. They are. So your unique story needs to make sure it's solving their problem. And then it would be super helpful, especially in competitive markets like many of you are in, to say how you're different from competition. On the right side, we have a chart, a little picture, very simple. Let's say it's high price, low price, or way people decide. You know, what's their price sensitivity? If they're more focused on service, they're probably less price sensitive. Let's say you play there. You're a little more premium, but you offer more service. Let's just say that your competition, yes, they have a lower price, but they're more transactionally focused. So when you go and talk to them and people are like, well, why is your price higher? First, look for types of customers who are less interested in price and more interested in service as you ask all those questions we've talked about before. And then you can say, well, this is how we compare to competition. You'll get this and this. Here's an example. Now, this is a sales consulting firm. Starts with the frustration. You know how leaders struggle when sales is driving the business in a direction different from strategy? We customize a sales master plan to bridge the gap to grow the business faster. Frustration, how we solve the frustration. They generally don't need this third section, but we put it in here just for demonstrations. Others provide training and or templates, but don't help you grow the business faster. So this is saying you could go online and get training. You could get sales training all over the place. Everybody's got some. Or you could get templates, but they're not focused on helping you grow the business faster. No, their product is actually the sales master plan, but they only said that one time. They talked about growing the business faster 3 times, which is actually what the customer wants. So even better, customer testimonials, case studies, use cases, whatever it is. It's telling their story and how you were the guide. These case studies, they don't have to be too hard or testimonials, but as we said before, you want 1 or 2 people to say, be willing to say to others, or you write it down and then you distribute that, how you helped them with their business, their frustrations, and their metrics. Not just that you're a nice person. That goes a long way. If you really bring somebody out of a crunch, yes, that matters, but that also goes against their frustrations. It's not just being a nice person. Okay, so now, how to market, how to identify and market new customers. Action plan. I don't want to make it too hard. I know you're busy people. You already have a full-time job. You're already trying to do 1,000 things and juggle many, many things, especially in the midst of a pandemic. So let's keep it simple. Create a list of potential customers in your market. You might already have the list based on current customers. Maybe only add a few more. This should be a living, breathing list. It's not a one-time thing and it's done. It's something that you look at, you rank based on who you think is going to be the best, and you update that. Then create a specific plan. This doesn't have to be some fancy marketing automation, 10 emails, 5 calls, 2 visits. Could be, but really, you just want to get their attention. What's wrong with going and learning about what their business is? So when you do go, do prepare. Let's say you're going to go for a call. Let's say you're going to go in person. Make sure you prepare in advance. What's the company? What's it about? What are the locations if they have multiple locations? What does their current scenario look like? Look and act professionally. This guy, it looks like he even smells. I have a feeling you're not going to show up like this. But I have learned very specifically with many clients, even ones who sell high-priced products, they've got some people who are really wonderful and client-facing, and some people who are more techs, and they really are not so much about being client-facing. You just need to know what's the client care about or the customer care about, and what people are you putting in front of them. If it's you, you can be in control of that. But if it's somebody else, you need to make sure that they understand what your expectations are. Have those references available. If you got the testimonials, great. If they want to be able to call somebody up, have all the contact information ready. Or offer to send an email afterwards or a text afterwards. That gives you another connection. And then bring an organized sales sheet. Maybe the first time you don't want to bring that out, but if they have a question, you want to have something available. Simple, 1 page. You don't need a bunch of additional documentation. We hear a lot that people just throw those away. Should be professional, should be clear, but it doesn't have to be over the top. So you're probably thinking, what's this chief marketing officer talking about? She hasn't even said the words about marketing like TV or billboard or direct mail. She talked about sales a bit, then she talked about being in person, whether it's the current customers or the new customers, but she hasn't really talked about marketing. Well, here's the thing. Start small. What can you learn for free? I'm a big fan of free. I'm a small business owner myself, and you can learn so much. I learned this at the IMS company. When we were at dog and cat shows every weekend, they called it belly to belly with the customer. We learned more about the customer for free just by being there working and walking around and talking to people and selling food, of course, which was fun. But then you only add when you're confident on what you're currently doing. If people always ask me, well, how can you measure marketing? Well, the first thing is you have to be really purposeful about what marketing you're doing. And then you have to track, measure. Okay, I go to a show. Great. Maybe I go to one of those ice shows. Perfect. Well, how many people did I meet? Of those people, how many did I talk to afterwards? Okay. Of the ones I talked to, how many became a customer? How much did they spend in a year versus how much did it cost? That's pretty simple tracking. But the hardest part is starting at the beginning and saying, this is important to me. I want to do it and I want to track how it's going. So keep that in mind. Unfortunately, no silver bullet. So let's talk about, we went through first, how do you increase sales and loyalty with current customers? And then how do you market, or how do you identify and market to new customers? We've said identify who you want, from the subjectiveness of who you like to work with to the literal, where are they? What do they need from you? How can you serve them better than somebody else? Develop that unique story that's simple for you to say and for everybody in your organization to say. Create an action plan. Simple. I still like paper. I still write a bunch of things on paper. I have friends, maybe you're on a mobile phone all the time. You can do a voice note, or you can put it in a note. Please use whatever format works best for you. That's what I've also found. No one can force a format on you because it's not going to work with your brain. But create it specific. So what day, what specific task, so that you could actually check it off when you're done. Who's going to do it if it's not you? And then at the end of the day, show up well. Less concerning if it's you because it's your business generally and you want to show up the very best, but sometimes you're sending other people out for you and they need to understand your expectations. Okay, let's do another reflection. Now, for the new customers, jot down 3 characteristics of your ideal customer. They may be the same characteristics as some of your best customers now, so that's okay. Still write it down, just a couple of characteristics. Jot down how you believe, try to be objective, how you believe you compare to competition, based on what the customer cares about, not based on what you like to talk about, but specifically, how do they buy? What are the things that really seem to matter to them based on their metrics and their frustrations? Draft a few action steps. I am going to create a list of potential clients by Friday blank date. That's how specific I think you should be. And then, if you haven't already, because you are running the business, whether it's a person you know or you have in your organization right now, or a person that you will need to identify and bring on, identify a person. So I'm going to give you another minute. Just jot these things down or put them into your phone, and then we'll wrap it up. So 1 minute starting now. "30 seconds. "10 seconds. Go ahead and wrap it up. Okay, great. So, how'd we do? I'm looping you in this, even though I realize I'm the only one who is talking. Hopefully, you've gained an understanding on how to grow your business in these 2 specific ways. Number 1, how to increase sales and loyalty with your current customers. And number 2, how to identify and market to new customers. We are going to be sending out the presentation after this and the recording, but here's an offer, thanks to Modern Ice. If you'd like to set up a session for me to talk through ideas with you, to put together a specific plan with you, reach out to a Modern Ice representative and they will happily set up a call. I love working with people directly and giving ideas and hearing your passion come to life. So it's super fun for me and I appreciate Modern for giving me the opportunity to potentially connect with you. Okay, that's it, Gary.
Amy, what a fantastic job you did for us today. My first question to everybody is, I understand there's some audio problem hearing me. If you are having a problem hearing me, just put something on the chat thing real quick, and we will find another way to make sure the questions get asked. But Amy, a fantastic job, and I appreciate your energy and what you brought to us. So super job today. I think we have a few questions to get started. Looks like they can't hear me, so I'm going to have Jeannie step in and ask some of these questions to you. Okay, Amy?
Sounds good.
Amy, how do you measure success of any marketing initiative?
Great question, and one of the number 1 issues I hear. What's the story? I know I'm wasting about 50% of my marketing. I just don't know which 50%. So I would tell you the very first step is, like I said a minute ago, decide what you want to track. So if it's super important to you to get more calls, okay, well, let's say you go, like I said, to a conference, or let's say you do send out a direct mail. I'm not an advocate, but let's just say you do. Well, you write down how many did you send at what date, And then you get a little tick sheet. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. How many did you get? From that, how many set up calls? From there, how many actually bought? How much did they buy? And then the ROI calculation is pretty straightforward. What did you get based on what you spent? But the very first step, and the thing I'd encourage any of you to do, make sure you have a marketing budget, meaning you know how much you're spending on marketing and know how you're going to track, even in simple and potentially somewhat subjective ways. Make sure you're writing down what are you doing and what do you even think you're getting on it, and try to track that over time. That will help you understand comparatively between one idea to another. Jeannie, I see a question in the chat. Is it okay if I answer it?
Absolutely, yes.
So Tony, thanks for the question. Would it be better to create an action plan first or send a questionnaire out to customers to assess our company's perception, then create an action plan based on their responses? Thank you for the question, Tony. My action plans would include sending out the questionnaire. So I guess my answer is I would create the action plan, because the first step could say, create a questionnaire on how to understand perceptions, get those responses, and then what? So in my mind, the action plan includes getting those responses. The action plan doesn't have to literally say, this is my exact next communication point, but it does say, what will I do once I get that feedback? So week 1, create the action plan. Week 2, send out the questionnaires or somehow call or get the input. Week 3, get all those responses back together. Week 4, create a plan to respond to those. I believe that's what your question was. If I didn't, please put more into the chat there.
I think that's the last question we've received. Anybody else have any questions? Please feel free to throw them in there right now. Looks like someone is typing.
Okay, good.
Great. I don't think we have any other questions, Amy. Thank you for sharing all this insight today. We hope that everyone attending is able to take this information and make an impact in their business immediately. If anyone attending has additional questions or needs more in-depth assistance with your marketing, let us know. Amy's helped us and can definitely help you if you need it. And we're happy to be that conduit between the two of you. We look forward to seeing all of you in another webinar. And you will receive a recording of this right after it's over. Again, if you have any questions at all, let us know. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Modern. It was my pleasure. Take good care, everybody.